killed her, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight.
Keep your babies close to you. There's nothing out there.
What's up, Mob Crew? I'm Chris, and today's missing person case is Don. Also, today's person of interest is Olivia. Today's missing person case is today's missing person case is Corey. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. I cover murder, mystery to the paranormal. And today we're going to be talking about the Delphi, breaking down the probable cause affidavit a little bit more specifically the witness statements and what each one described, and kind of take a look more in depth of that. But before we get started, I'm going to quickly plug my Patriot Supply sponsor real quick, and then we'll get started. Mob Crew and friends, are you prepared for the widespread food shortages ahead? Farmers have been warning us for months, but are we listening? They say it's beyond their control, especially with the fertilizer crisis. Bottom line, food shortages will be a harsh reality very soon. That's why you should get ready now with emergency food from My Patriot Supply. And good news, today you'll save 20% on their 3-month food kit. These kits provide delicious, easy to make breakfasts, lunch, dinner, snacks, drinks for one person for 3 solid months. Get one for each member of your family while you're able to save 20% during this timely sale. Remember, My Patriot Supply is the nation's largest preparedness company with millions of families already protected. These 3-month food kits, which average 2,000 calories a day, are in stock and ready to go. Your order ships fast and free and arrives in unmarked boxes. Go to preparewithwww.preparewiththemobcrew.com. Those who know what's coming are already prepared. Are you? Prepare with www.preparewiththemobcrew.com. Thank you so much. All right, shout out to My Patriot Supply for sponsoring today's video. I saw Black Rage's comment. I got a crap load of 29-cent ramen. Yeah, I remember when they cost like 10 cents each. God, they've gone up. Yes, I've been there. Still kind of am there. Yeah, I love ramen. I mean, I used to, because after I was 18, I moved out. So I've been on my own for most of my adult life. So yeah, I've had to go cheap and lived with ramen for a long time. So I totally understand that. So quickly, before we get talking about Delphi, if you're new to the channel, we always like to try to feature current missing people. So today we have Athena Strand, who went missing on November 30th, so just a couple days, from Paradise, Texas. She is just 7 years old, 4 foot tall, 65 pounds, dirty blonde hair, blue eyes. It says in the details she was last seen wearing a gray/black long sleeve shirt, blue jeans with flowers on her front pockets with brown boots. Athena Strand's whereabouts are unknown. Law enforcement believes the child's safety and health are in danger. So if you want more information, go to hashtag bring Athena home. If you have any information on her whereabouts, please contact the sheriff's office at 940-627-5971 or call 911. All right, so, and that is Paradise, Texas. So anybody out in Texas, keep an eye out for Athena. All right, so I got sent some messages. It looks like there was some things that just got tweeted out by Angela. So we'll go take a look at those real quick, and then we'll dive into the timeline. But this was released, I think, from the defense side of Richard Allen. And this is the statement. I think there's 3 or 4 pages. So we'll go ahead and read this. I'll try to make it as big as I can for you guys. We'll zoom in. Okay, that's not the first page. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So this was just released. So as Richard Allen's attorney, we have received multiple requests from local and national media for interviews and comments. Basically, the media is trying to interview his defense. It would be virtually impossible to comply with these requests and continue focus on merits of Rick's defense. Therefore, we offer up these thoughts. We do not want to try this case in the media. We intend to adhere to the Indiana rules of professional conduct that provide guidance and pretrial publicity. However, the police and prosecutor's office have conducted many press conferences over the 5 years. On the other hand, Rick's ability to assert his innocence has been reduced to only one short post-hearing press conference. Accordingly, we feel it appropriate, necessary, and within the bounds of our rules of professional conduct to make a few comments concerning the probable cause affidavit. So this is basically the defense response to the affidavit. So here we go. It says, Rick is a 50-year-old man who has never been arrested nor accused of any crime in his entire life. He is innocent and completely confused as to why he has been charged with these crimes. The police did not, now this is important, the police did not contact Rick after Libby and Abby went missing. Rather, Rick contacted the police and voluntarily discussed being on the trail that day. Like many people in Delphi, Rick wanted to help any way he could. Rick contacted the police to let them know that he had walked on the trail that day, as he often did. That's interesting. So he just basically confirms that he knows that area quite well, knowing that he was on the trail that day. Now this is interesting, is that he wants to call in and say that he's trying to help, but he didn't see anything there. So I don't know how him voluntarily admitting to being there and not seeing anything is really going to help. Just my 2 cents on that. Oh my gosh. Thanks for all your hard work, Chris. We love this channel. Keep up the great work. My goodness, Tom. Thank you so much for the $100. Unnecessary, but thank you so much. That's so awesome. Please show Tom some love. He's the one that actually emailed me texted me this just before I went live. So thank you so much, Tom. That's awesome, buddy. And I'm so happy. His cousin, his wife's cousin, went missing, and he went missing. I think it was a 14-year-old, and he was found. So good news for that. So happy to hear that, Tom. Okay, moving on to the next one. Rick volunteered to meet with the officer outside of the local grocery store to offer up details of his trip to the trail on that day in question. Rick tried to assist with the investigation. And that's interesting because we know that a lot of people like murderers like to insert themselves into the case. This would be if Richard Allen is the murderer. This would be the typical thing that we'd see. Rick tried to assist with the investigation, told the police that he did recall seeing 3 younger girls on the trail that day. His contact with the 3 girls was brief and of little significance. Rick does not recall if this interaction with the officer was tape recorded, but believes that the officer scribbled notes on a notepad as Rick spoke to him. So I wonder, that's kind of interesting, because after we read this, there's also something else that came out, saying now they're kind of saying that this was a clerical error when it comes to overlooking Richard Allen's statement. But we'll go over that after this. After Rick shared his information with law enforcement officials, he went back to his job at the local CVS and didn't hear from the police for more than 5 years. The next time Rick heard from police was in October, which I believe is October 13th of this year. This was approximately 2 weeks before a contested sheriff's election, within days of a federal lawsuit filed against the Carroll County Sheriff's Office by its former second-in-command, Michael Thomas. It's kind of interesting. In the lawsuit, Thomas claims that he, Thomas, had made suggestions and offered assistance in the investigation of a high-profile child homicide investigation, but those suggestions and offers were rejected by the sheriff. Thomas further claimed that the sheriff and others in the department feared that disagreements with Thomas would become publicized as a result of the political campaign for sheriff. That's interesting. Thomas claims in the suit that he was ultimately demoted and replaced by Tony Liggett, who later that year won the 2022 election for sheriff. Furthermore, Thomas claims he was also removed from the high-profile cases. Rick was ultimately arrested on or about October 28th. In the 5+ years since Rick volunteered to provide information to the police, Rick did not get rid of his vehicle or guns and did not throw out his clothing. He did not alter his appearance. He did not relocate himself to another community. He did not. He did what any innocent man would do and continued with his normal routine. Now, just to add to this, the not changing his appearance, and we'll look into the description. I don't think he really needed to do that because it sounds like he had his face covered with a scarf and had a hat and a hoodie, so people really couldn't see his face. So there's really no need to. And then, of course, when you have those sketches, and we'll get to that, I don't think you really needed to change your appearance. The probable cause affidavit seems to suggest that a single magic bullet is proof of Rick's guilt. It is a bit premature to engage in any detailed discussions regarding the veracity of this evidence until more discovery is received. But it is safe to say that the discipline of the tool mark identification, so they're talking about the extraction marks, is anything but a science. The entire discipline has been under attack in courtrooms across this country as being unreliable and lacking any scientific validity. So they're basically saying that this whole process and the extraction marks aren't very reliable in court. We anticipate a vigorous legal and factual challenge to any claims by the prosecution as to the reliability of its conclusions concerning the single magic bullet. That's kind of interesting wording. Oh, that is true. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So on Rick's behalf, we argued to have the PCA unsealed, the probable cause. Rick has nothing to hide. As importantly, we are hoping that we would receive tips that would assist us in proving up his innocence. Not surprisingly, we have been inundated with tips from a variety of sources, all of which will be vetted by our team. Although it is the burden of the prosecution to prove Rick's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the defense team looks forward to conducting its own investigation concerning Rick's innocence. We appreciate those that have reached out to support his cause. The prosecutor mentioned at the last hearing his belief that others may have been involved in the killing, yet there is no mention in the PCA, Probable Cause Affidavit, about a second suspect involved in the killing. The defense is confused by such discrepancies in the investigation and will be in a better position to respond as more discovery is received. Rick Allen owned a Ford Focus in February of 2017. His Ford Focus is not in any way similar to the distinctive look of the PT Cruiser or smart car that was described by the witnesses. It seems that the Carroll County Sheriff's Department is trying to bend facts to fit their narrative. And we're going to look at those cars. Like I said, we're going to break down the 3 witness descriptions. Actually, there's 4 juvenile witnesses, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we'll also talk about the different cars and look at each one and compare them. At this point in time, we have received very limited information about this case and look forward to having something more to view than which was offered up in the sparse PCA. Moving forward is our intent to scrutinize the discovery, as defense would, as it is received, and give the necessary attention to the volumes of tips that we are receiving. To the extent we continue to discover information that points to Rick's innocence, we will offer this information to the public, so long as we are not prohibited from doing so as a result of the recent request by the prosecution. And this is also another thing that just came out, is the gag order by the Indiana Rules of Professional Conduct. So that is by Brad Rosie, and Dean. And then, of course, it's got Andrew Baldwin. So his 2 attorneys, Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin, for Rick Allen. Yeah, I think it would too, especially if you compare it to the Ron Logan search warrant, which kind of discussed what happened to the girls. So yeah, I think so. I would agree. Good to see you, Tony. Always an honor to have you in here, buddy. Tony's from Equicert, somebody that I had the honor of working alongside with him with the Dylan Rounds case. That was really just an amazing experience. So that just came out. So typical for the defense, put that out. Let's see here. And we also have the gag order. I'm not going to really read it. I mean, it's just basically 2 pages, I believe. Oops. Let's see if there's any. So I guess there's a hearing that's going to be scheduled for January 13th. So next month at 10 a.m. in regards to this, let's see, court issues and granting information release. Is this the gag order one? Let's see. Okay, so this is the press release. So yeah, whatever this is going to be for January 13th. Granting the state's motion for So is this the gag order? Anyway, so they have the gag order. Oh, maybe this is it. No, that's the same one. So anyway, so they have this hearing that's going to be on the 13th. And confirms multiple sources. So this is also released by Angela. Confirms multiple sources. Richard Allen, the Delphi double suspect was overlooked after he came forward due to a clerical error described as a misfiling by a civilian employee. So they're going to throw a civilian under the bus with the FBI. We have reached out to the agency for a comment. So, wow. So we'll look at this. This is just a quick 1 minute video here. They did get a response. Okay, so Ben Foxwell says they did get a response, and FBI said that wasn't true. Interesting. Ooh. Uh-oh. Throwing blame around already. Okay, one more video, and then we'll start breaking down the witnesses. And I have a theory on the young guy sketch, and there's two possibilities. It could be someone completely different. That just all depends on how Richard Allen exited the the Monon Bridge Trail. But we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Let's play one more video. This was also just came out today. Hi, Chris. He admits to being at the trail, parks by CPS. And yes, I'm going to show you guys what the CPS building looked like around that time and why this he probably parked there. So hi, Chris. He admits to being at the trail, parks by CPS building, seen by many. Voice matches. Not one person said saw two men wearing same outfit at same time and bullet. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot more. Remember, the probable cause affidavit is just enough information to warrant an arrest. So I'm sure there's a lot more. Just like especially what Ben said about the search warrant would probably have a lot more details. Thank you so much, Sensei.
And thank you for joining us. I'm Felicia Lawrence. Tonight, we're digging into multiple developments in the Delphi Murders investigation, from a possible error early in the investigation to what's next in the case. But let's start tonight with the effort from Richard Allen's lawyers to tear apart every argument made by prosecutors linking Allen to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. We spent the last few hours combing through the points they made to try and prove Allen's innocence. So let's get straight to the highlights. They say police didn't contact Allen after Abby and Libby disappeared. Instead, Allen voluntarily talked with investigators about being on the trail that day. So
my response to that would be two things that come to mind first. I mean, other than, if he's the murderer, that's just, something that they insert themselves into cases to get more information. I think also the fact that if those cigarette butts were his, because he is a smoker, he kind of freaked out. And it's like, well, I better admit that I was there. And also, he did have a cell phone because they did get, the details on his phone. So I'm assuming maybe he was freaking out because they'd be able to track him. So that would be kind of some of my first thoughts on that.
And Allen didn't hear from police again for more than 5 years until about a month ago. They say Allen did not get rid of his car, his guns, or his clothing. He didn't move and just continued to live his normal life. They attacked the so-called unspent bullet, evidence outlined in court documents released this week. They criticize ballistics and its use in court cases, calling it anything but a science. And they point out prosecutors have mentioned there may be another person involved in this case, but there's no mention of other suspects in the court document.
Yeah, and I think that does kind of help his case with prosecution admitting that they believe that there's more than one actor. The defense going to chew that up, and then along with the ballistics, speaking with Steve from True Crime Web, he did mention that yes, the defense is going to have a field day, trying to discredit this bullet and the extraction marks.
Now, before the probable cause affidavit was released, the Carroll County prosecutor released a statement reassuring the public he has a very solid case. It went on to say, "We strongly believe the evidence shows Richard Allen was involved in the murder of Libby and Abby."
Yeah.
And new at 11, Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby is responding to those comments from Allen's lawyers. He says he feels the court of law is the proper setting to vet the case and says patience and time are needed for all aspects of the case to be brought to light. Emily Longnecker actually took this case to a defense attorney not connected to the investigation. Emily, what's her take on how this would stand up in court?
Well, Felicia, the defense attorney we talked to has been involved in her.
I think that's kind of premature because, like I said, there's a probable cause is just enough information to get the guy arrested. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff that they have on him. They took so many items from his home, took pictures of what was in his shed. I mean, he could have had memorabilia, and that could be real, real bad.
Fair share of murder cases. And she says if the evidence in this probable cause is all the prosecution has against Richard Allen, they're in for an uphill battle. For almost 6 years now, like so many others across Indiana, the country, and even the world, Katie Jackson Lindsay has followed the investigation into the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German.
I have from the first day.
And like everyone else, the longtime defense attorney and former Marion County prosecutor wondered when an arrest of a suspect would finally come. When it finally did in late October, Jackson Lindsay was anxious to read the charging documents, outlining why investigators believed Richard Allen was their guy.
Yeah, and I agree with that just because, especially now in this day and age with social media, you don't want those people that know details to go on shows, and then they can't be used as a witness, when it comes to court because now they're talking about it. And so I totally understand the gag order because we want a fair trial and we don't want anything that could cause a mistrial. So I'm totally down for whatever steps they need to take to make sure that, they get the right person and it's, done the right way.
When the release of those documents finally came this week, what Jackson Lindsay read in them, though, wasn't what she expected in a case that has garnered so much interest and attention.
You just expected when the time came, and today was the day, that there would be solid critical evidence, especially considering how much restraint they used in releasing information to the public, and that's just not what we have.
Jackson Lindsay calls the evidence against Allen listed in the affidavit of probable cause circumstantial at best.
In any criminal case, there's direct evidence of the crime and there's circumstantial evidence of the crime. And from my perspective, I don't think there's a lot of direct evidence tying Richard Allen to this crime.
When it comes to the unspent bullet casing investigators say they found between the girls' bodies that they linked to one of Allen's guns, Jackson Lindsay says as it stands now, that's not enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt Allen is the killer.
We don't know their cause of death, so we don't know how relevant that actually is, because if we find out sometime later that their cause of death had nothing to do with a firearm, then you wonder why that casing is important to begin with.
Jackson Lindsay.
Yeah, but from the Ron Logan's warrant, we kind of have an idea of what happened to girls, and I'm not going to talk about that just because it's something I don't like to mention, but yeah.
She also says she expected to read more about how investigators determined the man on the bridge and this voice were definitively Richard Allen.
No, because you got to remember, he did the photos for the funeral, and the funeral would have taken place, within a week of the murders, maybe, so obviously either he just started working at CVS, but I think he'd been working at CVS before that, started before this happened, because obviously he was the one that produced the photos for the funeral, which is really just disturbing.
Allen.
What I actually expected was someone who could conclusively say that he was the man on the bridge, or some sort of voice analysis that could conclusively tie Allen's voice to the voice that we've heard on the audio recording.
Investigators say at least 4 women on the trail that day described seeing only one man who looked like the man on the bridge around the same time Allen told investigators he was there too.
Oh, yeah.
The charging documents also show investigators believe the clothing those witnesses described the man wearing, a blue or black jacket and blue jeans, match clothes.
That's a great question. We're going to talk about that. Like I said, that'll be kind of towards the end of the show, but yeah, we're going to discuss that.
Clothing Allen said he was wearing that day on the trail. Jackson Lindsay still has questions.
But no one has, at least according to the affidavit, no one has sat down with a photo array and indicated that that person was Allen.
Jackson Lindsay says there could be more evidence not included in the charging documents.
They could be using a lot of restraint to protect the integrity of the investigation or the integrity of the trial.
Even so,
There are just some critical.
Oh, I completely respect that. I do. I think it's him. I think there's a good possibility of a second player. I think it's him, and like I said, we're going to kind of go into the reasons why. But I totally respect everyone's opinion. And it looks like it's a little divided. It has changed a little bit. 77% believe it's Allen. 70% not sure. 6% no.
Pieces missing that we normally see in a murder case.
As we mentioned,
Okay, so let's see. I don't think there's. All right, they talked about that. Oh, is that the response? Hold on.
case and will continue to support them in any way I can as we work toward a conviction and justice for Abby and Libby. We also learned a hearing is set for January 13th to decide on several requests in the case against Richard Allen. Now, one is to issue a gag order preventing lawyers, police coroner, or family members from sharing information outside of court. The second request to move the trial, the venue, 150 miles away from Delphi.
Oh, are you talking about the what happened to Abby and Libby? I mean, if you're interested, the search warrant for Ron Logan has some details to it. But like I said, I don't want to talk about that because it's just in respect to the family. But yeah, if you're curious and you haven't seen it, check out the Ron Logan search warrant. It gives you a little bit of details. And then there's obviously rumors that have been out. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to go into that. So anyway, let's get on to the timeline and what these witnesses, 3 juvenile witnesses, which is interesting because they talk about the 3 juvenile witnesses, but there is actually 4 witnesses that were there at the very beginning. And it is mentioned in the PC affidavit. But what's weird is they only get the three witnesses' descriptions. But I think this 4th one may have been part of one of the girls that actually saw something covering his face. Because from my understanding, there's 2 witnesses that saw somebody with their face covered. So let's get into the timeline, and then we'll kind of break down. Like I said, I've got what each one describes, and we'll just kind of go along. And then towards the end, we'll look at, because I did watch a video with Julie Melvin, who is kind of a local to Delphi. She's been at that place at the Monon Bridge many times, knows the area quite well. And she had some interesting theories on which way he may have kind of came out. And so we'll kind of talk about that as well. Yeah, you got to have humility when doing stuff like this, or you're going to get ripped apart. But yeah, like I said, if you're interested in that, I said the Ron Logan's got a little bit of details, but yeah. All right, let's get going. I'm going to play the video that I had. I think I have it fairly, the timeline. Like I said, I had to kind of do approximate times in between the times that these girls like take a picture and stuff. But I do think I had Richard Allen kind of approaching a little early, but we'll kind of discuss that as we go here. So let me get it to where it's kind of, so I can stop it and pull it up here. Okay. So we kind of start out. Let's make sure you guys can see it okay. So there's actually 4 juvenile witnesses, but they only say there's 3 in the beginning of the affidavit, but they do mention when they leave that there's 4 juvenile witnesses. So I think there's actually 4 girls there altogether, but we only hear from the 3 in the affidavit. Hope that's not confusing. So there's really 4 juveniles there. They were walking from the Freedom Bridge, walked the 501 trail. They would approach the Monon High Bridge. One of the witnesses would take a picture at 12:43 p.m. They then would head back the way they came on the 501 trail. The same witness would take another picture at approximately 1:26. So here is, and this witness, one of the four girls, says she takes a picture of the east bench. So there's a bench here. It's kind of hard to see. And I'm not sure if maybe there's a bench on this side here where the trees are kind of covering. But she takes a picture. Maybe it is this one. Maybe they mean east of the Freedom Bridge. So maybe she's taking a picture of this one. And then shortly as she's doing that would be when they capture Richard Allen's vehicle coming westbound on the 300 North here. Tom says, I really feel like there's a lot more evidence that will slowly be revealed through discovery. Yep. They only released enough info to present an affidavit. Yep. And make an arrest. I feel they found blood in the car. Ooh, yes. That's a strong statement. They did take his car. And it sounds like, if he is the murderer, and what may have happened to the girls, and because we'll share this, the girls were attacked with a bladed weapon, according to the Ron Logan search warrant, and that there was a lot of blood. And of course, one of these witnesses sees a man walking on the north side, muddied and bloodied. So definitely getting into that car. And blood stays, you can use luminol. I wish I had Steve on with me. He could tell you that if there was any kind of residue that transferred from his pants or shirt or whatever to the car and he didn't clean it up, and even if he tried to clean it up, there's still some kind of, hopefully, if Richard Allen is the suspect, there is that evidence there. But thank you so much for the $10. Totally agree. PM. A minute later is when Richard Allen's car would be seen on the Hoosier Hard Store surveillance heading westbound, where he would park his car at the old CPS building. So I have that so I had it at 1:28, but I think he arrives right at 1:30, a little bit later. And then I think he maybe sits in the car. This is the only thing where I changed my time. I did this video right after the affidavit came out, but now kind of looking at it, I think probably he arrived back then, probably got set up. So I think he was probably in that car for a good, few minutes. So approximately 1:28 p.m. He would then take this path towards the Freedom Bridge entrance here and would encounter the three juveniles at approximately. So this is what it'd be look like him approaching, and there would be four witnesses there. I don't know if they're all together or maybe they're in two pairs. 1:30, and that's probably, let's say if there was no target for him, if this wasn't like a pre-setup with maybe the Kline or with Anthony shots, if this was just him looking for one person, I could see maybe that's why these four juveniles were lucky, because they there's four of them there. And they're, all together here. PM, shortly after the one witness took the picture of the bench. The three witnesses each encountered Richard Allen. They all kind of described similar stuff, but different things. Okay, so we're going to go into what they described here. And So, like I said, we have 3 witness descriptions, but there's 4 people there. So the first witness describes, and this is all the descriptions. So she describes kind of creepy. She says, like blue jeans, really light blue jacket. So it's almost like she's trying to say that he's got blue jeans on, but his blue jacket is light. So, which, as you can see, kind of makes sense. I mean, they both, I don't know, the pants actually kind of look lighter, but I guess that just depends on a certain light. But, and that this is interesting, his hair was gray. So it's kind of interesting that she was able to see his hair, which Richard Allen does kind of have at that time. He would have been 45. Most likely had gray hair still. Maybe a little brown, she said. He did not really show his face. And then the only other thing is duck canvas type jacket, which is basically the same thing as a Carhartt, basically a description of a Carhartt jacket without a hood, though. I guess I should have took the hood out. But other than that, this is basically kind of what she describes with the pants and the jacket. It's pretty much jeans and a light blue Carhartt jacket, which Richard Allen did own a Carhartt jacket. And that looks like what BG is wearing. Then we move to witness 2. She said hi to him, but he just glared at them, which I think is an interesting statement. But because he glared at them, she was able to see that he, and this is what's kind of interesting, she describes this guy as being in all black and something covering his mouth. So I think it's, in my opinion, one or two things: a scarf or a gaiter. And I almost kind of leaning more towards a gaiter. I really think there's a good possibility, just because I've dressed up in all these things and doing the scarf thing. It was so hard to recreate this, and I know my head's blocking it. I just realized that. I'm sorry. Squeeze this over a little bit. You guys can see. To recreate this thing sticking out, this little white thing, which is, I think, is either the scarf or the gaiter. I had a real hard time kind of recreating that with the scarf. I mean, just, I don't know, it was tough. So I could definitely see possibly a gaiter that he kind of had stuffed in there. And then she describes not very tall, bigger build. She said he was no bigger than 5'10", which is an interesting, statement, because I'm not good with height. But she felt that he was no bigger than 5'10". Wearing black hoodie, black jeans, black boots. He had his hands in his pocket. So this is kind of basically what she describes. So a little bit different from the other witnesses, with the black, basically all black on. It's possible it could be a secondary person, or just the lighting, and maybe she was more focused on everything else, quickly said hi to him, and really didn't get a good look at the whole description. But I mean, she was sure enough to know what kind of build he had, and so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Then we move on to witness 3, and this juvenile was wearing baggy jeans and was taller than her. Her head came to his shoulders. So I'd assume she must have came pretty close to him. She said that he had blue or a black windbreaker jacket, had a collar, and he had a hood up from the clothing underneath. She said hi to him, but he said nothing. He was walking with a purpose, had his hands in his pocket and his head down. Did not see his face, but was sure enough that he was white male. So she pretty much describes, this is a picture of me dressed up as BG trying to do a reenactment. So you got to take away obviously this cord. But this is basically what she describes. She doesn't say what color the hood is, but we'll just kind of say maybe it's possibly this brown hoodie that's sticking out. So pretty much a pretty good matchup of what reflects in the video. Let's see, there's one more thing I was going to say. So yeah, so that's from the 3 witnesses. And then there's one more thing I just wanted to point out. So the first sketch, which we know is the sketch here, was released. From my understanding, is that this came from 2 juvenile witnesses who saw a guy with something covering his face. And there was even a witness that described, and this is a juvenile witness, that it was a guy with a hoodie and a hat with a short bill, and also had something covering his face. So I wonder if this came from the 4th juvenile witness, but they left that out for whatever reason. But there are 4 juveniles there at this area here that they run into BG or Richard Allen. So this is where you kind of get this sketch from, is this encounter with these juveniles. But of course, this sketch, there's no mask over the face because, I don't know, maybe I guess they feel like that wouldn't really help much people if, you got his face covered and just his eyes and maybe the top bridge of his nose. So I think they added in the face because this is obviously a combination of the witness statements and the video recording is how this sketch came to be. I think I missed something here. Chris, the scarf may have been a Shemlaw scarf. Is that how you say it? Shemlaw? I hope. Shemlag? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Interesting. Let me write that down. Shemlag. We'll have to look that up. Shemlag. I am 6'3", so I'm not the best person to be, dressing up as BG. Obviously, I'm going to look much taller than the original, but, by dressing up, it does give you an idea of what would make sense. Tom says it's damn near impossible to get blood out of cloth seats and carpet. Ooh, good point. I've heard he still had the jacket. Yep, there is so much more to this. Agreed. Interesting. Will says he obviously was wearing 3 times or so too. Likely would have different contours. Yeah, bigger jacket then look a little bigger. Yeah, I could definitely see that for sure. Okay, let me get caught up. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, Sensei Wackadoodle. I will check that out. I hope I didn't butcher that. Okay, so moving on. So that's what the 3 to basically 4 juvenile witnesses describe. One witness described a white man. So we'll just kind of skip that. But that's a look at the trail. Oops, I had an itch. So I originally had that encounter at, I think, 1:30, but I think it's more 3 like juvenile witnesses would then leave, going across, heading west past the Freedom Bridge. Then this is when witness 4 begins to arrive. Now this is important. This is why I say there's 4 juvenile witnesses, because witness 4 sees 4 juvenile witnesses leaving. So, but for whatever reason, they only put the 3 out of the 4 of them describing Bridge Guy in the probable cause affidavit. But this witness who takes this road sees 4 juvenile witnesses exiting westbound Freedom Bridge. She heads this direction. She would then loop around and be seen on the Hoosier Harp store surveillance driving eastbound at approximately 1:46. Witness 4 would then park at the mirror. So I think there's one of two things that happened with this, is because in her statement she says there are no other cars. So she could maybe mean, because I'm sure this is all kind of reduced and watered down. It could be because, Kelsey says that she had just gotten off the phone with her boyfriend at 1:39. So I think maybe the girls were there in the parking lot. I just think she says there's no other cars there besides the white car that Kelsey is dropping the girls off, and that they're just kind of in the parking lot waiting, which you can get about, apparently from Julie Melvin. She says you can park about 4 cars, and I'm going to show in this video what this little parking lot, it's not really a parking, I guess it is a parking lot. I believe she arrived just minutes before Kelsey dropped. So this is kind of what it looks like here. It's a little bit forward, but this is the mirrors entrance here. So as you can see, I think maybe you could get a couple cars on each side, or, but yeah, this is what it looks like here, where you can get a few cars to park. Maybe off because this witness describes not seeing any other cars in the parking lot. Started walking the 501 trail. So witness 4 now would be walking the trail just after arriving at 1:46, and so here I'll keep playing it, is when Kelsey had arrived and dropped Abby and Libby off at approximately 1:48 past the Hoosier Harp store. So Kelsey's car would be seen on that camera leaving at 1:49. So now you have witness 4, who is now walking the trail, and Abby and Libby starting to walk the trail at approximately 1:48. Abby and Libby would then obviously start taking the 501 trail as well. So Richard Allen would then be on the bridge, which is where witness 4 would approach the Monon Bridge and see Richard Allen standing on platform 1 at approximately 1:55 p.m. She would then turn around and head back, which is when she encounters Abby and Libby walking towards the Monon Bridge. So I think witness 4 and Abby and Libby run into each other approximately around 2 p.m. I think just as... So this is interesting. So I think Richard Allen maybe was starting to follow witness 4 back. Maybe was going to target her. And then of course, then here comes Abby and Libby at just after 2 p.m. And Julie Melvin, and I think you can see it in this video, there's kind of a offshoot somewhere in here halfway between, and I think he could have maybe just, the reason why he's not seeing the pictures, he probably kind of came off to the side and kind of waited to see what witness 4 did and to see if anybody else is coming and to see where Abby and Libby, what they're doing. Witness 4 and Abby and Libby run into each other. Richard Allen begins then walking back, possibly following witness 4. And so witness 4 is now past Abby and Libby. I think he kind of watches witness 4 leave. So from my understanding, that's a great question. That's something I'm going to talk about towards the end, because I'm going to play this. It's almost done. And then we're going to talk about some different scenarios, especially after watching the Julie Melvin interview with Fig, because she knows the location and some secret routes that are in these woods. And so we'll talk about that here in a bit. But yeah, I'll talk about what the approximate time it takes to walk from one end to the other, from what I've heard from people that have been there. And now Abby and Libby probably run into Richard Allen shortly a couple minutes later at 2:02 p.m. and then noticed that there was nobody else coming from the trail. Abby and Libby would approach the Monon High Bridge and actually take a picture at 2:05 p.m. I think while the girls are just approaching the Monon High Bridge and taking the picture at 2:05, Richard Allen has seen that there's nobody else coming, and witness 4 has left, and so has turned around, is now circling back and heading back towards the Monon Bridge. Then you have Libby taking, and there's always that one little possibility that he could have went to the southeast end and waited. I mean, it's not impossible. A picture of Abby at platform 3 looking back, and I think Richard Allen is somewhere just outside the picture approaching the Monon High Bridge. Sadly, the girls would reach the end of the bridge shortly before 2:13, and Richard Allen would catch up and start being filmed. Let's, if we can, just try not to talk about the family of either. I mean, because we don't know what she knew, the wife of Richard Allen, and I mean, it's such a, yeah, I just don't want to open up that can of worms. We'd just rather just not talk about that until we know specific details. At 2:13, which is when the video starts, when Libby starts recording Richard Allen, and this is where he tells them, guys, down the hill. We also learn in the affidavit that the word gun is used, and so that's something that I've always mentioned, not always mentioned, but mentioned a lot recently, is I feel like the reason why they did not show us more than 1 second clip of that video is, do I have it here? No, I do. Is that he was about to brandish a gun. Oh, did I take it out of this one? I put it back in here. Oh, here we go. I always kind of felt like he was about to brandish the weapon, literally right as they end the video, is he's about to pull this gun out. I don't think he's got it in either of the pockets, the jacket, the outside jacket, or the hoodie underneath. I think he's got the, let me move this over just a little bit. I think he's got the gun right under the Carhartt jacket, and he's about to just brandish it. But they wanted to keep that, obviously, that detail to themselves. But we do learn, obviously, that they mentioned the word gun, and we did talk about kind of what also was said in this supposed 43-second video, which is the video begins with Abby and Libby kind of discussing girl stuff, and then one of them mentions, is he still there, or is that guy, or whatever, and then I believe he says, hey, and then Abby or one of them responds with a hum, and then he gets closer, and then I believe he's then pulled out the gun, and then Abby responds, is that a gun? He's got a gun, and then now he's caught up with him. This is something I talked about, and is why we only get 1 second clip of the video, is because he's about to brandish that, and law enforcement didn't want to release that. He then orders the girls to go down the hill. 1 minute later, at 2:14, is when witness 4 would have already gotten in her car and would be leaving. Her vehicle would be seen on surveillance heading westbound. So Richard Allen would then try to escort the girls down the hill. I think the girls did try to make a run for it and ran across the creek, but Richard Allen would catch up to them. This would happen 2:30 approximately, is when the murder would probably start to take place. Sadly, Derek German would arrive at 3:14, and as approaching the intersection would run into who we know as the flannel shirt guy, which is one of the McCain brothers. He would say that he had not seen anybody. Instead of taking the 501 trail, Derek German actually took the other trail. Moving back to the crime scene. So I think the murder sometime finishes about 3:30, and this is where my speculation comes into play. So I did kind of speculate that maybe he kind of came out of the cemetery, but after watching Julie's video, now no matter what, he's seen on the north side of this 300 North by a witness, but I think I have a new, and this is just speculation, but at some point he does get over, and we don't know exactly where. That's the other thing is, let me just pull up Google Earth real quick here. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about the cars and also the young guy sketch. And is it just somebody completely different? So I got some interesting things here. So let me get this all in here. Here we go. Okay. Let me get down. Okay. So now this could, it's not the one I want. Yeah, 3:30, 57. Let's see. Okay, so that's that one. 3:30. Okay. So I originally had it here. Now Steve, who's been there, True Crime Web, and many others, said it. It's kind of because he's went into the woods here, and he says, let me get this, that the terrain's pretty rough. Now, do keep in mind he is a hiker, so and we've seen in Anthony Greeno's video, he said that it's not impossible to come out of this area here and pop out the cemetery. So he could have done that because we would have a witness, which is a big witness, that sees Richard Allen somewhere. Now, this is just, I had this here. This is just speculation that saw him, but she describes a man on the north side of 300 North that is muddy and bloody. Now, we just don't know exactly where. It could be, closer to the Mears lot here, or it could be closer to the cemetery. Not sure. It's not really said where. It just says that she's heading eastbound and that he's heading westbound. So, and I would assume it's got to be somewhere between this and before the Hoosier Harp store, because obviously there's no mention of him being on the camera. So I think it's got to be somewhere after, this area here. But after watching that video with Julie Melvin, she talks about kind of an area. I don't know if it's a trail, but it's just an area, a path, I guess you could say, that she thinks he could have taken. So let me pull that up. So she says, so obviously you would have the crime scene here, which is 50 feet from the water. You've got the 40 caliber casing, unspent casing, the 40 caliber shell, unspent bullet, trying to get away from casing and shell, unspent bullet between the two bodies. So Julie Melvin says that there's kind of a path that you can kind of take, and she describes it just kind of running along the creek here, which is looks about 50 feet away, that you kind of run along here, and you could probably even just stay in the tree line. And I think it's possible that he could have came out and he wanted to avoid this intersection, because no matter what, you're going to hit one of the trails. So I think what may have happened is he tried to stay in the tree line, but then knew that, you've got this intersection, which, I mean, now you have Derek German on this in here. You've got, because Derek German showed up at 3:17. I think the murder finished at 3:30, so he's now, wandering back. And he is seen at 3:57 on the north side. So I think it's quite possible that he popped out, went on the north side, crossed over, and when the car drove by and saw him muddy and bloodied, he freaked out and went back into the woods, and then maybe could have finished, and that's why he probably wasn't seen on the Who's or Harv store camera, and probably went back into the woods and then just followed the tree line, or could have just walked the trail. But I think he probably tried to stay hidden. But that's just my theory and suggestion. But I think especially after him probably seeing a car drive past him, he probably freaked out and probably went to get secluded. But that's just my interpretation of the possibility. So let's look at the old CPS building, and then we're going to break down what he described being there. And I missed something here, so let me grab that. I'm sorry, Tom. Trying to go along here. Thank you so much, Heather Brown, for the $1.99 super sticker. You're so awesome. Thank you so much. Tom, did you? Okay, that's just the original one. Okay. I love Tina. That sounds really good to me. Yeah, after listening to her, because like I said, she knows the area. She's been there. As a matter of fact, these videos that I've been playing that came from Anthony Greeno, she was, she's kind of in them. She knows this area quite well. So let's just kind of take a quick look at the multiple descriptions of the vehicle from these other witnesses that saw the vehicle there. So, multiple witnesses describe seeing a car backed into the old CPS building. This is interesting as it had shrubs and bushes to conceal the view. So, this is kind of what it looked like. This is a picture that was taken around that time. This is the abandoned CPS building. And so you can kind of see the shrubbery and bushes. So I could see with somebody being backed in, where even, they say PT Cruiser and all this, it would be really hard unless you like walked up to the car to get like an accurate description of the vehicle. So I could definitely see why there'd be kind of different, PT Cruiser and stuff like that. So we'll thank you so much, Mary, for the $5. You're so awesome. Thank you so much. So one of the witnesses that drive by and see his car at, sure you guys can see that. Okay. Let me pull up. So along with, I believe, witness 4, there would be a couple of male witnesses that would drive by and see his vehicle parked there at 210, 214, and 228. One of the witnesses describes a purple PT Cruiser, but assuming, so this would be 300 North, where my mouse is at. Let's see if you guys can see that. So you got to think that they're, not sure how many feet away that is. They're over here. This car's maybe sticking out, here. But you have this, shrubbery here. I could see where they may not get a very good detailed look at it. And looking at, a 2016 black Ford Focus, and, you're just driving by, I could see where you could kind of get especially if you just see the front sticking out, I could see where you could kind of get, a PT Cruiser or something, small SUV type thing. So there's a look at that. And then another guy comes by, same route. He describes a small, dark SUV or small dark car, and he says possibly a smart car. So, same thing. Maybe because of the shrubs, that it looks shorter than it really was because you only had the front end sticking out, is what I was thinking. So they only really saw like half the car. So that's what made him think that it's a smart car. And I really think that's a good possibility, assuming that you're looking, from this direction and this, front end sticking out, but you got the bushes kind of blocking half of this car here. It would look like a small little smart car. So totally could understand seeing something smaller car like that. Sorry, I'm reading two things here. Thank you so much, AJ. Thanks for your insight and politeness. It's my honor. Thank you so much for the $1.99. Okay. So this is just something that I want to talk about, and then we'll get into the young guy sketch and how it may not be Richard Allen, or it could be his accomplice. So, but Richard Allen did assert himself and saying that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. He says that he went there to look at fish at on the bridge. And while doing so, he was checking the stock exchange or stock ticker on his phone. He says he arrived there at 1:30, and he even admits to parking at the CPS building, except he says he parked at the old Farmer Bureau building, but he was mistaken. It's a CPS building. So he even admits to parking there when they were looking for somebody between noon and 5 that day. So that's just somewhere where something that just makes me shake my head. So he admits to being parked there between 1:30 and 3:30. So from what I understand, the path from basically the Freedom Bridge to the Monon Bridge, let me clear this, is about a 20-minute walk from what I've heard from multiple sources. 15 to 20 minutes. I've heard somebody mention 30 minutes, but I think it's about 20 minutes for the average person to walk from this little entrance right here. This is right where my mouse is at, to the bridge. So you got about 20-minute walk. Then you calculate the walk from this, which maybe 3-4 minutes. We'll just say 5 minutes from, let's say he parked, took a few minutes to get out. So we'll say 5 minutes to get to that. So he's there at 1:30, 5 minutes to get there. And then you got 20 minutes to add on with the whole track. So now 25 minutes. So you would literally be there at 1:55. Abby and Libby. So that basically put him at 1:45 at the intersection here. And remember, Abby and Libby show up at somewhere around 1:40 to 1:50, or start walking the trail between 1:40 and 1:50. So I think it would be basically, according to his statement, it would be impossible, because he says the only people he saw were the 3 juveniles at the beginning Freedom Bridge. But according to his statement, if he did what he said he did, it would be impossible for him not to see the two girls because of his timeline, according to him, going to the bridge and looking at fish. He would have had to have run into the girls, or the girls would have had to run into him. So that's just kind of breaking down his own timeline. So that's just another thing that kind of makes me shake my head. So now the big thing that I want to break down, but I'm going to go quickly. Let's see. I'm going to play this bolt extraction thing. If you guys didn't see it real quick, I have to let the dogs out real quick. So I'm going to play this and quickly let the dogs go out. They kind of explain the bullet extraction.
Single unspent investigation is a single unspent bullet found near the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German in 2017. That detail revealed yesterday when a judge ruled to release a redacted version of case documents. WRTV's Rachel Wilkerson shows us what that single bullet could mean to this case.
According to the unsealed probable cause affidavit in the Delphi double murder case, an unspent .40 caliber bullet was found in between the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German. Unspent means it was never fired. That single bullet, investigators say, links Richard Allen to the crimes. An Indiana State Police laboratory analysis on Allen's gun reveals the unfired bullet was at one point loaded in the chamber and had extraction marks on it. Indianapolis gun expert and defense attorney Guy Relford explains how that happens.
When the slide comes back like this, a round is extracted from the chamber with what's called an extractor, which is like a little claw that actually hooks onto this protruding rear edge of the cartridge, pulls it out, and then the ejector takes it out of the ejection port. So that
I think a lot of people are saying that he's super unlucky or the dumbest. Well, super lucky for 5 years, but yeah, the dumbest. Yeah. So true though. I totally agree. So I'm just gonna play a little bit more of this extraction, then I'm gonna talk about this young guy sketch and explain how this sketch was supposedly the witness where they were at, and was it really Richard that they saw? So, but I'm going to finish playing this, and then we'll talk about that.
Claw, that extractor that grabs onto that little edge on the back of the cartridge can leave a little mark on the shell casing, even on an unspent round, through the process of extracting that unspent round out of the gun.
Testimony of a muddy and bloody man matching Allen's description. Audio and videos are also being used as evidence. Allen has pleaded not guilty to the murders of the girls. Records show he admits to visiting the Monon High Trail, but doesn't have an explanation for the bullet.
So it could be a malfunction of the gun. It could be a misfire or other malfunction of the ammunition. It could be someone doing it intentionally and to induce fear. Or some factors that we haven't thought of yet.
So yeah, I asked Steve about some of the scenarios of how that bullet could have extracted out, and it was pretty interesting. It could have been a multitude of things, just like this guy's describing. He could have forgot that there was a bullet in there, and he cocked it to try to scare them, and there was already bullet in the chamber, so it extracted it out. There could have been obviously a scuffle, and he tried to maybe pull the trigger, and it misfired. Many different things. If he parked like that, they are going to push for premeditated, and premeditated conviction warrants a possible death penalty sentence. Yeah, I'm sure. They'll probably, if they've got the right evidence. Well, I mean, it depends if there's two players, though. I wonder how that's going to work. I guess we kind of have to wait and see. I wonder how that's going to work. If there is really two people involved, depending on how much the other person did versus Richard, if Richard Allen's, the guy that, let's say, just for instance, maybe Kegan Kline set up the meeting and that's it. I could still see them pushing for, obviously, a death penalty. I mean, which rightfully so. But I just wonder, depending on how much if this other supposed actor comes into play. So thank you so much, Tom, for the $5, buddy. All right, so now moving on to something that bothers me, and that is the young guy sketch. So let me go back over here. So as I talked about, this sketch came from a combination of two witnesses, and I think even possibly the flannel shirt guy, but I think he recanted because he wasn't sure if he saw him or somebody else. So I think it came from two juvenile witnesses and then a combination of the recording, because these two girls saw somebody with something covering his face. So I think they didn't want to have, a sketch where you can't see half the face. So they took the liberty of doing the combination of the video and the witness statements. But the young guy sketch, this is interesting. So, okay, go back once real quick. So this sketch came from most likely the witnesses at the Freedom Bridge, which is way over yonder. Now, from my understanding, this young guy sketch came from somebody that was on the southeast end, which is over past the bridge, and they described a person that had brown reddish hair, light facial hair, did not have blue eyes. And this is what we got here, from my understanding. Yes, this is that dog walking witness, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is that witness. So the only way, because it seems like Richard Allen or BG came in with a hood and possibly a hat, something covering his face. Maybe when he was, maybe when he got to the bridge, when the witness 4 was approaching him, maybe he didn't want to freak them out, so he kind of maybe pulled off the mask. I don't know. But somewhere, obviously, before he approaches the girls, he just pulled down whatever was covering his face. But I think there's two possible scenarios. Let's pull up the map here. Because like I said, this witness came from the southeast end, and she was really freaked out about him. So I think the only way would mean that he would have had to cross the bridge or cross the creek back and walked up. Maybe he was thinking about exiting this way, maybe taking the private driveway, maybe just wandering, maybe take the long way around or something. And that's when he encountered her. We've heard that when people murder, are in that moment of rage, that their eyes kind of turn black. So maybe, especially after this murder, maybe she did see Richard, and now his hood and hat, because of wrestling and everything, dispatching of the two girls, now he doesn't have the hood up and the hat, whatever happened to him, and now he's traveled back. The only thing is you would think if she's got enough look at him to describe the face, she didn't say anything about muddy and bloody. So that's my only argument to that. But so either he could have, and maybe she just saw the top of his face and wasn't really worried about what was going on below, and then that freaked him out, and then he crossed back over and then started to exit out the north side. Or that could be just somebody else entirely. And I don't know. I'm kind of mixed. Honestly, I'm a little more on the fence on the side that I really don't think that young guy witness was. I think he might have been either the second actor or just possibly another person that just happened to be there and she just got freaked out by him. That would be my opinion on that. If you look at the pictures from RA from 2016 and 22, there's a drastic difference. Yeah. Kind of talking about like that. Well, that's not 2016, obviously. That's and then yeah, this one here to now, which would be, yeah, he definitely grew out his goatee for sure. Much more cleaner. Anyway, moving back to, let's see, one more thing that I wanted to talk about. Where did it go? But anyway, yeah, just to finish on that, I don't know, just curious what you guys think. But like I said, from my understanding, is that witness had encountered him somewhere on the southeastern side, and I don't know. I just think if you're gonna get a look at his face, I think if he was, this would have happened after the crime, so he would have been muddy and bloody. So I don't know. I think it could go both ways, but my argument would be that it's a good possibility she didn't. She saw somebody else. But and then just to kind of recap on this, after seeing Julie Melvin talking, I think it's a good possibility that he kind of shadowed the Woodline area here. Then, of course, you'd have the intersection, so you're going to have to come out. You're going to have to show your face on one of these traveled roads or trails. So he would have to eventually pop out somewhere. And it just so happened maybe he was either here or back here. And then that's when the car was driving by and saw him. And then maybe that freaked him out. And so he went back into the woods because there's no mention of him being caught on the surveillance. So kind of interesting. Best book title: Muddy or Bloody or In Plain Sight. Yeah. All right, let me take a sip and then we'll just kind of recap everything that we went over. Yeah, I agree. Maybe just the lighting was bad to her. Maybe just her angle. Because just to kind of recap the three witnesses, the first witness pretty much describes, which almost matches to a T, what BG is wearing: blue jacket, gray hair, duck canvas jacket, which is just basically like a Carhartt. But yeah, this juvenile who actually said hi to him, said he was all black hoodie, black jeans, black boots, 5'10", no bigger than 5'10", and bigger build. I've heard arguments that could be Kegan Kline, maybe. I don't know. If Kegan Kline was there and there's witnesses, I think he would stick out like, I'm sorry, but I think he would stick out like a sore thumb, just my opinion. And then description 3 is the baggy jeans, and then blue or black windbreaker with a collar and had a hood up from underneath the clothing, which is a really pretty good, accurate description of what we kind of see here. And then all these kind of happened around the Freedom Bridge area. And then, like I said, the more I think about this, this is a good look without the cars, but if he backed in maybe right here, I wish we could have a picture from this other side so we could kind of see what it would look like. Actually, you know what I should have done is take a car and then stick it halfway out Here, give me a second. See if I can do this real quick. Let's see. So let's take this. We'll kind of blow it up here. And take the PT Cruiser. Give me just 1 second, guys. Let's see. I think, especially with the smart car, this would totally make sense, actually. Now that I'm actually kind of seeing this, if this is how he parked in. Okay, perfect. Oh, actually, no. I want to have half the car. Hold on. 1 second. So I want this half. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Except without the red there. Okay. Delete. So assuming, I'll zoom in here. So assuming we're looking from the other direction, so you would see this kind of, because obviously then with how tall these bushes are, you know, it'd kind of be covering. So you'd basically be kind of seeing this stick out. You could definitely, actually, I guess I should have took, his car. I guess that would make sense more, huh? Something like that. Man, I should just take another Ford Focus. Yeah, not the best. Yep, that'll work. Kind of. All right, we're just kind of in a rush here. I don't know. This is something I might have to toy with, but I could see if you were really just seeing this kind of sticking out because you've got the bushes kind of blocking it. I'll zoom in here. I'm probably blocking the whole thing. So you'd really only kind of see this because he backed in. So assuming you're looking from the other direction, you'd really just kind of see this and then the bushes. I could totally see how that would look like a smart car. You know, because you're really only seeing this part if these bushes were. And I think this is pretty close to the timing of that day. So I could easily see where someone would kind of think it's a smart car because they're only seeing because it's backed in, so the bushes are going to be blocking half of the vehicle. So I could easily see someone confusing that with a PT Cruiser or a smart car. As a matter of fact, yeah, all I'd have to do is just do that. And so they think they're seeing this, but they're really just seeing one half of the vehicle, so it would look like a smart car. Just my 2 cents on it. This is something I'd have to do a little bit more, but oh, is that the neighbor's car? Okay, it's pretty close to the Ford Focus, though it still has kind of like the same front end. It's pretty darn close. So yeah, I wasn't sure if that was his car, but it's pretty darn. I mean, if you look at a Ford Focus, it's pretty. 2016. Pretty much. Oh, black. So yeah, I mean it's pretty close without the wreck on it, of course, but it's depending on what model. But yeah, I could definitely see just seeing the first half of this car sticking out for sure. That's just my opinion on that. It's something I'll have to look up. Yeah, that's something I'm going to look into too. Is there was also a hitchhiker, and I don't know if that's the same witness that, because apparently there's a hitchhiker that saw somebody suspicious, and I think they were walking along this way here with a duffel bag. So maybe it could be possible that Richard Allen had taken off his jacket, the blue jacket, just probably because from the Ron Logan affidavit describes that whoever did this murder would have been covered in a lot of blood. So I could definitely see him taking off his jacket. Usually have a jacket by me. I don't know if I can really show this on the camera, but I could see, you take off your jacket. Sorry, this is a little shiny. Oops. Mic check. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. But I could see, if you're carrying, I guess the screen's kind of good. But I could see if you just kind of had a bundled up jacket, where it kind of looked like a duffel bag. So that could have been what happened is he took out his outer layer, maybe took off his cap or something to kind of just change his appearance from how he'd entered in. And so now he's just kind of walking. So, but yeah. Mystical. Yeah, that's it. Just like it. More for the car. Thanks for all you do for all the victims and their families for justice. Amazing presentation and live chats. You rock. Thank you so much. Oh, could the hitchhiker be the guy in black? Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's still so much more to the puzzle that we don't know, of course. And who knows when we're going to get more pieces with the gag order going through. That's really going to take any kind of witnesses, but I think that's for the best because we want a fair trial. We don't want any anything that could cause a mistrial for sure. But yeah, I think I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on this because I think I could have really because like I said, when you look at just the regular picture, here, let me just close that out. But yeah, this is what it looks like, and I'm assuming he backed in right here. So you would have had that tall brush, maybe the first half of his car sticking out, and you've got the road right here. I can clearly see people seeing a PT Cruiser, anything real small, because they're not seeing the full car, possibly. So just to recap, we kind of went over the witness. They did have a gag order that came out. Let's check a look at Twitter real quick, and then I've got some updates for what's coming up. Let's see. Richard. So just okay, yesterday and today's gag orders. Okay, so that's just the gag order. Oh, gun was collected on October 13th. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because they did come to him on the 13th. That's interesting. Oh, okay, so that's just talked about in there. And then, of course, did ransom test on it. Okay. See if there's anything updated on that. So there is that. You guys have anything? Let me just check. Saying in the chat here. Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be some DNA evidence. There's the hair that was possibly found at the crime scene. Seeing Richard Allen with those cats. I would not be surprised at all if this cat ends up being one of the nails in the coffin if there is animal hair at the crime scene. Just because cat hair gets everywhere. Love my fur babies, but yeah, they tend to leave their hair everywhere. So yeah, we just kind of recapped on the witnesses, the press release statement by the defense, where they just say that Richard Allen doesn't have any history before this, and that he came forward on his own accord, which I think, to me, just, I don't know, I think that's something typical that these killers do, is to insert themselves into an investigation. Plus, if those cigarette butts were from Richard Allen, I think he's freaking out because possibly his phone records being shown that he was going to be there. So it's like, well, I better call in and say, hey, I was there, but I didn't see the girls. But like I said, I show this little timeline here where if he arrives at 1:30, like he said, and he did, and it's about 20 minutes from Freedom to the bridge itself, and then you give him 5 minutes from sitting in his car getting ready to the Freedom Bridge here. So 25 minutes puts it at 1:55 that he would be at the bridge, and you got the girls arriving shortly between 1:40 and 1:50, that it would be impossible for him not to see Abby and Libby, according to his statements. So, and then, so just future stuff coming up just around the corner. In a couple of days, we are going to have Drew Collins on, who is the father of Lyric Cook, Elizabeth Collins. I'm sure if you covered the Delphi, you've probably heard of Evansdale. And the Evansdale is coming up on the 10-year anniversary, unfortunately, sadly, with still has not been solved. Here's just a quick little recap of that case.
Exactly 10 years ago today, the first reports came in that Lyric and Elizabeth were missing. It's one of Iowa's most baffling and highly publicized criminal cases.
I feel like the end is coming. The tips that are coming in, I think we're getting closer.
Elizabeth and Lyric, the cousins who went out for a bike ride on the trail near Myers Lake in Evansdale, but never came back on that Friday the 13th in July of 2012. Their bodies would be found 5 months later by hunters in Bremer County, 20 miles from Evansdale, in a case that remains unsolved. And that's what haunts Drew Collins, who shared the final voicemail he would ever receive from his daughter, Elizabeth.
Hey, Dad, it's me. I miss you. Bye. I love you.
It's really hard for me to listen to that because you have little bits and pieces of your kid left. And
so this is who we're going to have on Monday. As far as I know, nothing's changed. Not sure exact what time. I don't know if I'll be able to have the exact time. He's going to go on Steve's show first. It will probably start somewhere about this time. It'll be a little bit later than I usually start, just because he'll be on Steve's show first. But we're going to have him on. As you can imagine, it's going to be his 10-year anniversary that he's coming on. So, I mean, I'm super honored to have him on the show. But, you know, with the Delphi kind of getting traction, you know, I think he feels that, you know, and his family deserves to know and get the ball rolling and to get the, you know, the awareness out there that, you know, this case is still unsolved and they need help. So whatever we can do. So yeah, I'm really excited and nervous to have him on because I just can't imagine having to go through what he's gone through. But in a nutshell, two girls, Elizabeth and Lyric Cook, 6 and 8 years old at the time, I believe, were riding their bike, and then they didn't show up. And then, of course, they went to go look for them. They couldn't find them. They found their bikes. And then they would not be found until 5 months later in a wooded area about 20 miles away. Skeletal remains were found. So just it's a terrible tragedy. And there's always been kind of that possible connection of Delphi and Evansdale because it's two girls that were attacked. And the date of the events that happened are literally anagrams of each other. So a lot of weird coincidences between the two. So we're going to have him on this coming Monday. So in a couple days. As far as my members, I've got a members only video coming out tonight, which is my ode to Chris Farley. Steve, that's Steve from True Crime Web. He's former law enforcement. I usually have him on the channel once a week. So definitely check him out. He covers Delphi as well. He was actually in Delphi when they started investigating Richard Allen, which was kind of crazy. So, see what else I got. There was one more thing. Oh, and then since I haven't done anything paranormal, I'm going to do something for the members on the paranormal side coming this weekend. So look for that as well. And yeah, Friday the 13th. Yeah, both of these happened on the 13th. In Evansdale case, it was Friday the 13th, sadly. So yeah, exactly. That's why I'm kind of more nervous than anything, just because I can't imagine being in his shoes. But he's gonna brave it out, which is amazing. Yeah, for my members, I love Chris Farley. I did a dance where I danced with do some dances with Chris Farley in the background, green screen thing. It's just something for my members, just to kind of add levity to all the bad stuff we talk about. So with that said, I think we covered everything I wanted to cover today. I appreciate everybody taking the time to check out the show. Let me see what the final results is. So 73% think Richard Allen is BG, 8% no, 20% not sure. So interesting. If you can, before you leave, please leave a like. The YouTube algorithm has been atrocious to content creators. I never know what I'm going to get as far as views. It's crazy. So if you can leave a like, that really helps. Hit the bell notifications and stuff like that for future videos. That helps me as well. And I really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. There's a few other things that I'm digging into. And then as soon as there's updates on the Idaho 4, as far as I know, there's still no suspect. On the Michael Vaughn case, they did realize, they did find that there was that his remains were there in that backyard, but they didn't find any, but they had hinted to him. So they believe that Michael Vaughn was in that backyard buried, but then has been since moved somewhere else. But they did release 2 new persons of interest in the Michael Vaughn case. So if you haven't seen that video, I put that video out yesterday with the 2 new persons of interest. So if you want to check that out. And yeah, and we'll probably most likely go live tomorrow, depending on what details are out with. I'm hoping Idaho 4, they get on the ball with that. I feel bad for them. So with that said, I'm going to play the outro with my pet outro. And if you're new to the channel, you can send me in a picture of your pet through jointhemobcrew.com, and I will add the pictures of the pets in for an outro coming up in the future. So with that said, thank you, mods, for all your hard work. Thank you guys so much for being respectful, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have an amazing Friday.